Welcome to the Backyard Buddhist Podcast. I'm Ron Powell McLean. Hello there. This, my friends, has been a week. It has been a week. I have definitely felt it. It felt twice as long as the weeks before, the recent weeks before, I should say. And I think for me, the difference is that I started several projects at once. And I think I started them all at once, or not all at once, but sort of turned them all on separately, one after the other, not realizing how large the undertaking was going to be for each of those projects. And I have patterns like everybody else. And one of my patterns that I've noticed is that I'll start a few too many things. And when I get overwhelmed, I sort of fail to do anything. So then I get stressed out that I'm not getting anything done, and it's a spiral. And it's pretty normal in my life for that to rear its head every now and then. And again, it follows another pattern of me regrouping and figuring out what is priority and what things am I doing that I can let go of. So I've recently done some reorganizing of my time, and when we started in the pandemic a year ago, I was really aware how much people were struggling, and I ventured to offer a daily meditation, just in the span of 20 minutes or a half an hour, some instruction and some guiding for those who had never meditated before. And we certainly had a lot of people showing up and doing that a year ago, and it's trickled off over time, and not as many folks are in need. They're relaxed a little more. Things aren't as chaotic and unknown. There seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel. I think people are getting their feet back under them, and especially with vaccines rolling out, I'm a little nervous that specifically is going to get us in a little bit of trouble this summer, because I know there a lot of folks are hoping that everything will be back to normal by summer. And some of my my friends, several of my close friends, are in the medical industry, and they all kind of say no, it's not going to be ready. So we're going to have some time for things to settle in, and we might be able to loosen some strings and get together with our families and people that we know, and that we can maybe control some of the exposure, rather than just willy-nilly everybody back to normal. And I think we'll be in masks, if not mandated, but even voluntary for a while. I know I will probably wear one voluntarily for a long time. I remembered recently when I was in Taiwan for 2 weeks, and in Japan just overnight, in Tokyo, and there were just there were a lot of people who were wearing masks then, and that was, gosh, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, um, a bit of time. And I think in Asian cultures, it's kind of no big deal. It's been around for a while. You know, they've had several. Um, I'm not sure if they were classified pandemics, but they were, issues, SARS and that sort of thing, um, that were moving around, and masks are not a big deal there. So I'm going to let masks not be a big deal in my life, and I'm going to wear them when I feel like I'm in crowds and where I don't know people. And as an introvert, it's kind of nice having a little bit of anonymity behind the mask. There's been several times I've been in my sunglasses, my prescription sunglasses, and forgot I had them on, and ended up in a grocery store with a mask and sunglasses on, and I've never felt freer. But anyway, I think some of the chaos has died down, and in regard to leading a meditation 6 days a week and then Sunday service, I'm letting that go a little bit. I'm just doing guided meditations on Tuesday and Thursday now, and still upholding our Sunday service. And I think that's more than enough at this point. And if, people need to reach out and have some additional instruction or guidance, I'm always happy to do that. But so I've done some reorganizing and figuring out what's important to me right now to get moving. One of them has been, I feel very passionate about doing a class, online, of course, of the Lojong teachings, attitude transformation in 7 parts. So, and I'm going to do it a lot like what Lama Suryadas and Lama John Makransky did, and what was handed to me. So I'm going to stick pretty closely to that, and with some, a little bit of Ken MacLeod in there too, because I really like his approach to a lot of things. He's a cool guy. So I'm working on that and several other classes. I have a whole lineup of things that I want to accomplish. Some, meditation things specifically for Cultivate Meditation Academy, and a few others that'll straddle between that entity and the Kansas City Buddhist Center, and should be really some good transmission, I think. So I'm excited about that. But oh boy, I certainly got caught up in I'm not sure which direction to go. I'd been interviewing for some jobs lately, and I literally thought, I was very confident that I was going to have an offer from 3 different entities, and I ended up with 3 rejections, and was more than shocked. One of them I didn't really want. One, I didn't think the interview process was completed yet, and that I thought it was on hold for a few more weeks, waiting for a new person to come on with their organization. And the third one was, I'm telling you, the most perfect fit for my skill set, and I thought they felt that way too, and it did not pan out. So I was a little, I won't say devastated, but I was a little shocked that came down like that. So I was a little stressed out about those things. And I have an entrepreneurial bug in my blood that I really like working for myself. So when I can do that, I appreciate when I can, really just set my own pace and schedule. And I feel like I'm effective in that way. But anyhow, I've been spending a lot of time deepening my understanding and my practice of the Lojong teachings. And there's one that I remember it coming up years ago when I first was introduced to this collection of teachings. And the instruction was, drive all blame into one. And I know when I experienced it the first time, I didn't understand what on earth we could be talking about. Blame it all on one, really. And honestly, my mind was like, who do I blame it on? Who do I blame it on? So there was a question mark in my mind about, who really is to blame everything on? And then I thought maybe the answer was blame it on myself. Blame it on myself, that this is all, the manifestation of my desire or my karma or something like that. And to me, that's just not the right answer either. So what I've begun to understand by the exploration of this one line, drive all blame into one, that when I read it again, it was clear to me. Because I say, if you haven't written this down, write it on the palm of your hand, or write it in the front of your journal or whatever, so that you'll see it. Write it on a sticky note and put it on the bathroom mirror, that suffering equals attachment. It's equal to all of the attachments. And in our experience, we can quickly get to the understanding of that attachment when we think about sickness, old age, and death. The three things that kind of turned the Buddha toward his quest, the Shakyamuni Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, set him on his quest to find the relief of suffering from sickness, old age, and death. So when we start to pick apart, the understanding of what does, where is the suffering in sickness? Where is the suffering in old age? Where is the suffering in death? And it's this attachment to our physical being. And it's natural for us to have it. And it's part of the job of the ego to convince us that everything that we have is tied up in this body. That's the job of it, so that we protect it in all ways. But as we endeavor to understand our interconnectedness, our own the base of our consciousness, that which is the core of our being, that is through everything, also the impermanence of everything, and the impermanence of this body being quite specific. So when we're driving blame all blame into one, it's that suffering, and that suffering of attachment. So when you're struggling, when you're suffering, when you're having that even crisis of faith, or, for me, there's a lot of suffering around anxiety and depression and those patterns of thinking, that part of my toolbox and part of my turning on the spotlights of awareness are really shining into and asking the question, how am I attached? What am I attached to that's causing me this sensation of suffering? And it's my body, it's my mind, it's my thoughts, it's my creativity, it's my family, my things, my life, that, I'm about to be 53 years old in a few weeks, and I'm not sure that I can say midlife crisis anymore, unless I really believe that I'm going to be 106. So there's a little bit of fear that arises with, wow, maybe this is already half over. Of course, we never know, and it could end tomorrow. But, if we think about dying of old age and living a long, healthy, or long, maybe not healthy, but long life, that there's some fear attached to, oh crap, like, this is precious now. Don't squander it. And my husband and I are, talking about making some decisions based on, where we want to be, where we want to live, what we want to experience, in our next years, before we're, too old to enjoy it. All of that. So, like, there's a lot of emotion that comes up. So I can really find it by asking that question. What am I attached to that is causing this sensation of suffering, this emotional reaction of suffering? I love some Pema Chodron stuff, or Pema Chodron, if you want to call her that. I call her Pema Chodron, and she has some great commentaries on these Lojong teachings, as well as others too. But her interpretation of drive all blames into one, she says, this is advice on how to work with your fellow beings. Everyone is looking for someone to blame, and therefore aggression and neuroses keep expanding. Instead, pause and look at what's happening with you. When you hold on so tightly to your view of what they did, you get hooked. Our own self-righteousness causes you to get all worked up and to suffer. So work on cooling that reactivity rather than escalating it. This approach reduces suffering, yours and everyone else's. I love that line in there. When you hold on so tightly to your view of what they did, you get hooked. Shenpa, I think, is the word, that the term that she uses, the Tibetan term that she uses about getting hooked and pulled in. So it's important to see and take that honest, unbiased look at our own reactivity and see what's going on. Watch for your patterns. And I know I can watch my mom, I can watch my dad and watch their patterns, and even the patterns that they have that irritate me are my own patterns. We learn we learn from our parents, we learn from those around us to pattern. And we have emotional reactions and patterns that show up in all kinds of ways and just lay the seeds of suffering all around. It's like the rapid growing kind. It's like planting bamboo, thinking it's going to just be in that corner of your yard. And then suddenly it's an entire forest. It's that kind of suffering. It's that kind of reactivity that just propagates. And when you get into those familiar patterns, it just spreads like wildfire. So it's our job to see that as it arises with the most objectivity, with the most honesty, not judgment, not criticism, but instead just to see, there's the pattern that leads me to the effect of suffering. So we look for that reactivity and look closest to you. There are definite reactive patterns that are in your daily life. I have realized with a second little dog around, a puppy, that I am very protective, and I may be a helicopter parent when it comes to dogs. We took our two girls to the vet the other day to get their shots and have them, checked out and all of that. And neither of the dogs had a good experience with their shots. Aurora, especially the 3-year-old, she was, crying and screaming, and I was trying to be a comfort. And my husband now tells me that that I turned into my mother, and that frightened me a little. But I know that I, slipped into a mode of protection and trying to be comfort. I don't like chaos. Chaos is not my preference, so I have a bias and a preference and a prejudice against chaos. I don't like discomfort and pain, so I try to be the cool comfort in the room. And I was trying to be the cool comfort for the dogs, and that was not apparently working. Yeah. So it's important to be able to step back enough, and admittedly, things like that moment of just trying to be helpful, you're too close, too close to the forest to see the trees, and et cetera, et cetera. And I can reflect on the experience after it was done and maybe have an effect on future experiences like that. Maybe have mindfully let them, take the dogs back, give them shots without me in the room. That's a healthy alternative. So I'm just, I'm pointing that out because I think it's important for us to see our own patterns. We often, and I have close friends and relatives who will remain nameless in this context, who fall very closely to that patterning and that validation of the bad experience. I'm having a terrible experience because I am busy, overworked, overloaded, etc., and that's the excuse for the suffering, rather than, really taking a full account, and rather than just, check marking it and saying, I deserve to be in this place of suffering. I've earned this place of suffering because my life is chaotic, or I have these responsibilities. And that's a pattern. That's absolutely a pattern. And it's hard to see it when you're in it. But, my job, if you haven't heard me say this, my job, and I hope to lead to some disruption in your patterns, disruptions in your thinking, enough to get you to take an honest look. It's only you. It's just yours. We can't place all blame on anyone else. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that all the things that happen in the world, earthquakes and floods and fire, are the fault of our ego and our attachments. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But our own reactivity to those instances is our own. And that's not to say that we can or should be happy with devastation, but we can be calm. And that's really our job, is to be our own source of calm, because we see things as they are. We see things in their true nature, including ourselves. And our ego starts chiming and chirping up and saying, this is mine, I deserve it. And I can be cranky, or I can be bitchy, or I can be whatever I want to be because I've earned it with my suffering. And that if anything I've said on this podcast isn't disruptive enough, I want you to hear yourself if you are saying something like that. Because that is your suffering, and you are just perpetuating levels and levels of that reactive suffering. Levels and levels of that reactive suffering. All yours. So it's not turning the blame of everything into you or me, but in our own blind attachment. Blind attachment. Remember, the big difference in this is when we can shine the light of awareness straight onto that pattern, onto that discomfort, and change our understanding of it through the light of awareness. When we can really take an honest look. That's me being reactive in the same way that I've been reactive based on my traumas, based on my experience, based on what's been handed to me. The patterns of my parents are my patterns when things are tough. It's only through the light of awareness that I can relax and go, oh, I went straight to that watering hole with that reaction instead of finding the calm and finding the reality of what was arising. So it's mine to cultivate that arising awareness in each and every moment that I possibly can. That's enlightenment, folks. The clear seeing and understanding of whatever's happening without bias, without judgment, without preference. We just see it as it is. That's judgment. That's bias. That's a conditioned behavior. And when we see it as it is, we can release our unconscious attachment to it. Remember, awareness sanctifies everything. So don't overlook it. I have said it, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. That ability only lies in this moment. This active moment. This one that you're listening to my voice. The one that after my voice stops playing in your ear and you hear your own breath, or you hear your car, or you hear the washing machine turn on or off. In that moment is the moment that you can have enlightened awareness and change everything. Blind attachment is simply the product of an unconscious mind, just in patterned behavior, forgetting that it has an option. So remember, here and now, awake and aware. And remember what Pema Chodron says: when you hold on so tightly to your view of what they did, you get hooked. Your own self-righteousness causes you to get all worked up and to suffer. So work on cooling that reactivity rather than escalating it. This approach reduces suffering, yours and everyone else's. Don't overlook the one moment that you have a chance. It's right here and now. Your choice is blind attachment or enlightened awareness. You choose. I'll be back with you again next week. Have a great, great experience here and now, in this moment. Carry it forward into the next moment, to the next moment. You'll see what that moment is made up of, and that you can't find the beginning or end of the moment. It's fluid. It's your entire experience. This is the venture. This is the destination. Nowhere else to go but here and now. So don't overlook it. I'll see you soon. Bye now.